All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. See so many awesome people in Zoom land that I know and many awesome people that I have yet to know. So um, thank you all for being here, for joining us for this very special event. So my name's Michael Dubon, and I'll be your event MC for this most awesome event. I'm a member of the WTAW Board of Directors, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the launch event for Marisolandia by Michelle Cruz Gonzales, who we are so lucky to have here with us tonight. Hi, Michelle. So let me give a little synopsis of Michelle's new book right here. The new Republic of California is forcing Marisol, a Mexicana woman, to marry a white man to create a homogenous race in the new nation. She had until she was 23 to find her own match before Combination Nation made the match for her. And now she has to give her body to a man who treats her like property. But Marisol chooses instead to spend her time with a contaminado, goatherd, and his political minded punk band who share and respect her cultural identity. With them, she reclaims her body, her language, and her freedom. And we are so excited to share this amazing book with you, Marisolandia. And if you haven't gotten your copy of it yet, you can get one in our bookshop. The link will be in the chat. And it is a great book to scoop up for itself, being an amazing book while supporting an amazing author and our awesome literary community. So please look out for that link in the Zoom chat. So now I have the pleasure of introducing Michelle. Michelle Cruz Gonzales is a punk writer who writes about the intersection between race, class, and gender. Her memoir, The Spit Boy Rule, Tales of a Chicana and a Female punk band, PM Press, documents her experiences traveling with Spit Boy as a drummer, one of the primary lyricists, and the one woman of color. She and the band are featured in the movie Turn It Around, Story of East Bay Punk. She has published in literary journals such as the Los Angeles Review of Books, anthologies, including Listen to Your Mother, What They Said Then, What They're Saying Now, and online publications such as Latino Rebels, Long Reads, Razor Cake, and Alta Journal. Michelle holds an MFA in creative writing from Mills College and has been on the English faculty at Las Positas College since 2005. She lives with her marido, Jay Ines, in Oakland, California. And Michelle, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for coming. To my friends who are here, Dara, Jen, Laura, the others who I mentioned earlier, I won't mention again in the interest of time. Thanks everyone else, everyone who's here, Lauren for coming out. Laura, Ebert. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And let me introduce and Michelle's bio is in the chat, so if you want to follow up on any of her great prior work, like her memoir, that her biography is listed in the chat, so you have the names and titles of those readily available. Um, so tonight, Michelle will be in conversation with Stephen D. Gutierrez. So let me introduce Stephen. Stephen D. Gutierrez is the author of three collections of short stories and essays and an American Book Award recipient. He is well published in magazines and anthologies with two notable essay citations in Best American Essays. Most recently, his stories have appeared in the North American Review and Santa Monica Review. Captain Chicano Draws a Line in the American Sand is his first novella, just released by University of Tampa Press. Originally from City of Commerce, a small working class city in southeast Los Angeles County, he has made his home in the Bay Area for the past 30 years. He is a former member of the English department at Cal State East Bay. We're pleased to have you here, Stephen. Thanks for being here. And Stephen's bio is also in the chat to follow up on any of his great work as well, with the titles listed in there too. So just a little Q&A announcement. Before we dive into the event, I want to remind everyone that we'll be taking questions throughout. So please feel to drop your questions into the Zoom Q&A sections, that is the Zoom chat, as they come to mind. Maybe questions about craft or process or content or the author herself. Michelle will read her excerpt in a moment. Remember to keep muted, but also remember you can leave comments as Michelle reads of things that light up to you and use the Zoom React feature as well. And now, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Michelle to read an excerpt from Marisolandia. And so, Michelle, whenever you're ready, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Also, my marido is here, and my husband is here, and my office wife, Karen, is also here. All right, I'm going to read from page 10. The scrap of paper Moises had given her the night she'd given him her virginity was safe in her back pocket. Moises was contaminado, a Mexicano and a goatherd, who she'd only met a few weeks before in her neighborhood. He was there with his flock of FPGs, fire prevention goats, who grazed the dry land on the hills close to her apartment. He was one of those in the Republic who was invisible in the background of real life, and she hadn't noticed him at first either, only the goats. They became friends just as Combination Nation paired her with John. To avoid being reported to Combination Nation, she'd visit him inside the Pioneer Spirit, his goat herd RV, where he lived most of the year. He towed the RV along with the goats from one dry, fire-prone neighborhood to the next. Inside the trailer had everything a person might need in miniature: a kitchen, a table, a bathroom, and a bed. They were sitting in the compact kitchen table, each on their own built-in seat, Moises directly across from her. She could feel the heat from his legs near hers and hear the occasional bleating of goats. She wanted to stay there forever. There's something I should tell you. Moises reached out and grabbed Marisol's hand. She'd never felt his skin on hers. She hadn't even allowed the idea to enter her head. As far as the Republic was concerned, Moises was nobody, a shadowy figure, necessary hands for work that couldn't be done through machine learning. Antes que anything happens here, he gestured toward his heart and then hers, that isn't supposed to. I need you to know something about me. He squeezed her hand. Marisol felt all the air go out of her, but she kept her hand in his. I'm in a group, not like a pandilla or a gang, but it's a group, like a band. But more than chingao. He pulled his hand away. Marisol leaned back. A band, like music? See, dangerous music, underground. He lowered his voice. Like actual resistance music. I don't get it. I thought you were just. She pressed her lips together and stopped. Just a goat herd? Un cabrero? He looked away toward the window. Marisol turned and listened for the bleating of goats, and then she turned and looked at Moises. I've been assigned to someone at work. It's all been arranged. She covered Moises's hand with both of her hands. I'll be gone all weekend. His face went blank. She stood and shoved her hands in her back pockets. Anger, worry, disgust. She wasn't sure what he was feeling. They had only just begun doing whatever this was. She was just visiting the goats when he had first invited her in for some jamaica, a hibiscus drink she could never resist. You mean next weekend? He said. Yes, and she swallowed hard. I'm a virgin, una cereza. Cereza? That's made up, he said. That I'm a virgin? No, esa palabra. He tapped the table. That's a republic thing. In Spanish, una cereza is just fruit. Marisol's cheeks burned. Now I look like a cherry, she thought. She looked down to avoid his stare, willed him to understand why she was there, and said, It's just. He stood up and faced her, softening. You don't want him to have it? Marisol shook her head and stepped in close. She took one of his hands, squeezed it, and then slid it under her top. Me. I don't want him to have me. And I will leave it there.
Oh, gosh. Thank you so much for that beautiful and important, relevant reading, Michelle. Definitely left us wanting more. I guess I'll imagine us keep wanting to know what's coming next. So perfect timing for us all to follow up on in your book. So I'd love to now invite Stephen to join Michelle in a discussion about the book and the writing process. Let me turn it over to Michelle and Stephen.
Come on, Stephen, let's do it. I think you're muted still.
Yep, you're muted, Stephen. Oh, Stephen, you're still muted.
Now am I muted?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I said I just wanted to throw all my questions away because Sex and Revolution, you kicked it off right there. What more do I need to ask you? You could just take it from there.
Yeah,
That's
did you
great.
hear today did you hear the story about you can't be an American citizen working for the government in China and have sex or relations with anyone who's Chinese? Like literally, it's totally happening. Like it's totally happening. Like for real, for real.
I know it is.
Yeah.
These are weird times. Um, so my first question is, does this come from literature or life? I said, are you a sci-fi speculative fiction writer? Is that one of your preferred genres? Or did you just, step outside and sniff the air nowadays and read the newspapers and just, gauge where we're at? Where did it come from? What's the big influence here?
I started writing this book in like 2011. So
Okay.
I've been working on it for a long time and it feels like we're closer to what's happening in the book now than when I started writing it, which I didn't think would happen. And the funny thing is, originally, I actually, this is so funny. I literally kind of thought maybe it was set in 2025, and now, I didn't even
Wow.
finish it in time for that. But anyway, um, I am a total dystopian literature nerd, like
Okay.
totally. And I love 1984. I love The Handmaid's Tale. I love Super Sad True Love Story, all of them. I love all the dystopian novels, like the most well-known ones and some of the ones that aren't well-known, some of the young adult ones. And I I've taught 1984 like about 20 times. I've read it about 20 times with students. And I just love that book. And I would just always, after I read like Super Sad True Love Story, and then Margaret Atwood puts like a women's, creates a women's utopia, and then, Gary Steingart creates kind of like this tech dystopia. I was like, where is the Mexican dystopian novel? Like, where is that book? So, oh gosh, who was the writer who said you got to write the book that you want to see, right? So I did that. I'm blanking out on who it was. Oh my God. Toni Morrison.
Toni Morrison. Yeah.
Thank you. It came to me. Um, yeah, so I read a lot of dystopian works, and I just have always I always had this idea of writing a book about a dystopian world that was about Mexicans, because I mean there's a lot of dystopian shit that Mexicans have. I mean, we live in a dystopia in a sense. Latinx people are living in a dystopia. And like these little tiny dystopias are all over the place, and they have been forever, right? So I've always wanted to address those issues. And I love satire, like in a satirical way. So yeah, I mean that's me. I'm a dystopian literature nerd.
All right. Well, you hit it. You got it right. I mean, that's weird that you were thinking of 2025 and 2010, and here we are, and you hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't take a lot, it actually doesn't take a lot to think speculatively. Like if you're a good critical thinker and you just, you read a couple of speculative works, you can like work out. You can work out. People think people who write dystopian literature are like geniuses. And I mean, in some ways, I think like there's an element of that. But I think that if you just have really good critical thinking skills, you can, and you follow the news and you follow the trends, you can kind of work out where we're headed and try to stop it maybe, but you can work it out.
Well,
Writing about it's another story.
I like the goats here. It just keeps it very earthy. It doesn't become too cerebral, a dystopian novel. I'm right there in the trailer, the smell of goats, the bleeding goats. Very nice touch.
you.
Okay.
They visit my neighborhood every year, and I always wanted to write about them too. So I found a way.
Yeah, they visit near me. There are goats. Okay, well, here's a question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You got a punk band in this book. Los Fugitive Desparisex. What do you
Mhm.
know about punk music, Michelle?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question.
Thank you. I was just wondering.
I love it. I started my first punk band when I was 15. It was called Bitch Fight. We were all women,
Hmm.
two Chicanas, and we were all like the daughter, single moms, and we were all on welfare, and we were like hella angry, like Ronald Reagan had just like called her moms like welfare queens, and we're like, we're gonna write some songs. Um, so my first punk band was when I was 15, and then I went on
Oh,
to be in like four other punk bands. I'm most well known for the band Spit Boy. We toured the United States like a couple of times, and Europe, New Zealand, Australia, and Japan. And we released a lot of like 7 inches and albums and a CD. And Paula, who was in the band, is here in the room. Whoop, whoop. And I wrote a memoir about being in Spit Boy that came out in 2016 on PM Press that
wonderful
I
book.
mentioned earlier. Thank you. I loved writing that book. I loved, the comfort that it gave me to work out like all the things I was feeling that were just like, complex when I was younger. Um, so yeah, I've been in punk bands. I've written about punk. I can think of myself as a punk rock writer. My son thinks that's a little cringy, but I don't care.
All right. I was looking for a particular passage about punk in here.
Hmm.
Can't find it. That's pretty good. When they describe why they are a punk band, and she discusses it, whether it's still vital or whether, well, she says some people just kind of dismiss it as a fad, right? As a fashion statement, but they've actually chosen to use it as a vital music. So I was interested in her take on that.
Mhm. Yeah, when I was coming up in punk, we had like Rock Against Racism shows, we had Rock Against Reagan, and we had like a lot of punk bands did, you didn't ever make any money, so it didn't really matter. You did a lot of benefit shows and you donated money to Food Not Bombs or, Planned Parenthood or to other causes. And there was a time recently when people were saying online stuff like, "Oh, just because you're in a band doesn't make you an activist," and don't, you need to do more than just be in a punk band and speak out. You need to do more. And I was like, I don't know that I totally agree with that. That's messed up. Like music moves people to act, right? And music, I was politicized by punk bands. Everything I became interested in terms of geopolitics. So because of the Clash, because of bands like MDC, songs that punk bands that wrote political songs or socio-political lyrics, and I learned so much about punk. It became, about politics, and it became very politicized through punk music. And so I was kind of riffing on that idea, but I also wanted to create a band that actually was the band is because the band in the fuller novel, this is an excerpt from a novel, Marisolandia, is the full band really is the band is a cover, really a cover for their activist work. Um, so and I wanted to kind of just play with that idea. And I also wanted secretly I want to inspire punk bands to be like activist groups. So
All
that
right. Okay. Um, oh, okay. Here's a literary question, more literary question.
okay.
Where and how and why does Marisolandia fit in the Chicana Latinx literary tradition? Is it at home there, or not? Any influences along those lines?
Totally. I mean, it starts with an Ana Castillo epigraph, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I read a lot of the Latina, La Chicana, greats like Cisneros and Ansaldúa and Denise Chavez. But unlike them, I'm third generation. So I'm like pura Chicana and pura Califas. Like I was born and raised here. I've lived my whole life in California. I've lived in different parts of California, and I know, conozco mucho parts of California, in the Latino sense. And I have really lived a very, very, very third generation Mexican American experience. You know, I was born in LA. I grew up in a gold rush town, which has this real, I'm actually I think my next novel, I've kind of started writing it. It's going to be a haul, but um, I am writing about a fictional version of my first band, Bitch Fight, placed in Tuolumne, which is where we were from, because Tuolumne actually was Tuolumne and Sonora was the most international gold rush town in all of the gold rush area. And people spoke Spanish like on the street on the regular in Tuolumne and Sonora. And Sonora was named after Sonora, Mexico because of the miners who came. So I have a very California third generation Chicana experience. My mom went to school during the walkouts. Um, my history, my grandparents were like alive and like wore Pachuco hairstyles, and then my mom became like a Chicana hippie, and then I became like a Chicana punk rocker. And my mom was in school in LA during the school walkouts, and she was already walking out before the walkouts because she was ditching because she already fucking hated school for a variety of reasons. And um so my frame of reference isn't Mexico, even though I'm a Chicana. My frame of reference is California. A lot of the older Mexicana writers, the Chicana writers, do reference Mexico and going back and all of that. My writing really isn't about that. So in that way, it's apart from that, but it's totally part of the tradition. And then I bring like the non-traditional things to the Chicana to the genre or to the mix by, putting my little punk rock, angle on everything because I can't help it.
It's fresh. It works.
Thank you.
Let's see here now. Okay. Well, Spanish, Spanglish.
Orale.
Orale. Did you make a deliberate effort to use it? It comes so naturally in the book. It's firme, Michelle.
Thank
What
you.
is your take on that?
Um, so I speak okay Spanish and I speak hella good Spanglish. Um, like I mentioned earlier, I grew up in this kind of shitty hick town, and but I was born in East LA, and my mom's Spanish. My mom actually doesn't speak Spanish almost at all. In fact, when she's confronted with Spanish, she gets very flustered and nervous, and she'll say the wrong word at the wrong time. She went to school speaking Spanish in kindergarten and left speaking only English because she was bullied by the teacher. So my mom's Spanish was basically stolen from her by the school system in LA, which is one of the reasons why she started walking out before the walkouts, right? And but my first babysitter when I was born in LA was my grandma Delia, and she spoke three languages, Spanish, Spanglish, and English.
Mhm.
And as like a recovering, as an English, I think you probably might identify with this. All English professors have a little bit of Anglophile in us. So I'm kind of like a recovering Anglophile. Also, like I liked a lot of like British punk bands too, but they spoke a lot of Cockney English, which I always just like totally loved. But which is another language variation, right?
Yep.
Um, but I as a recovering Anglophile, I'm interested in language. And as a professor of writing, I'm interested in language and words and language variations and dialects. And but I have studied Spanish off and on like my whole life. Like in high school, I took Spanish in college. I did a thing in Cuernavaca, Mexico for a month through DVC, which I was a student there. Um, and then I married a Mexican national. My husband is from Colima, Mexico, and he um actually I did write the Spanish in the book, and there were times when I had to look some stuff up, to make sure I was getting it right. Fortunately, I have enough Spanish training in reading and writing that I know what to look up, right? But my husband is a Mexico, and I had him proofread it for me because I really wanted the Spanish. It's incorrect on purpose in places because Marisol doesn't always speak it well and she gets nervous and stuff too. Um, but I wanted it to read like Mexican, like working class Mexican Spanish, which is a very maligned Spanish, as you probably know. And I didn't want it to be have any of the vestiges of my kind of like the Spanish that I learned in school, which was a more formal version.
Mhm.
Um, so, because that's totally not the world that these characters inhabit. So it's kind of a mixed answer, right? Like I've always been around people who speak Spanish. I married a Mexicano. Um, he helped me with the Spanish in the book. He was so cute. He had like his little red pen and he had like and his glasses on his readers. I have this picture of him. It's like the hottest picture ever. He's just there with his red pen and he's looking up at me over his readers. I'm taking this photo. I had to capture that moment. Um, and then when he finished the book, he said that his critique of it was that it should be longer, which was
Oh,
a big compliment.
yeah, yeah. Okay. I
So yeah,
love it.
I love writing in Spanglish. I love writing in Spanish. I love the opportunity to practice and you know, growing up not speaking Spanish. Um, was really hard with a face like this. People speak Spanish to you all the time and they expect you to answer back, or they think you're pretending like you don't speak Spanish when you look
Mm,
like me. And
mhm,
it's a lot of shame for many, many years that I
mm.
endured. And so I have really, wanted to learn to mejorar my Spanish for so long. And I feel like I finally have done that to a certain extent. And so writing in it is just a way for me to practice and inhabit, the language of my family. Yeah.
All right. Okay. There's a wonderful part that you didn't read that satirizes academia, right after my heart. And that's also a rich literary tradition. The academic novel, all the madness, the stupidity, the silliness of an English department, of all things, or really any academic department. So I was wondering if you were also drawing from that tradition of the academic novel, academic satire, because it's spot on, by the way. When you
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to set it because it's just a world that I know so well. And a lot of the settings are like my neighborhood and Las Positas where I teach. And I wanted to set it in a college. I wanted to set her in a college because I thought that that would be a place to create a lot of like tension and to satirize as well. It's also it's just also an institution or a setting that I know really well. So I knew I could bring that to life, right? Um, but you had said in your questions, in your written questions to me that you wanted me to answer in Dean speak. And so I created an answer for you. It says, I aim to leverage abundance.
Oh God.
Even in lean budget times, and academia is always both running on lean budget and providing abundant material to satirize.
Oh,
So there you
thank you for that. Yeah. Okay.
literally, Karen and I literally had a president who the budget was like in the shithole, right? And it
Yeah,
was like a few years after we were hired. And it's always in the shithole like
it
every
is.
5 or 6 years, right? It gets really bad.
Yeah.
And she comes on and she's trying to be like this kind of Oprah figure. And she comes on and she's like wants us, she's trying to raise our spirits, our morale. And she would talk about the budget in one sentence, and then the next sentence she would say, but we're gonna leverage our abundance.
Yeah.
We have a lot of abundance and we're gonna leverage it. We're gonna and we would just leave every meeting like that,
Yeah.
just completely destroyed. Like that was not a pep talk.
You needed to have a retreat. That's what you needed to talk about it. Okay. Oprah. Funny that you should mention Oprah because
Oh,
obviously she's, well, kind of. She's Oprah, the Oprah Book Club and all that. But this question is, do you think Marisolandia will be banned in the future? And if so, how soon?
I hope so. I hope it gets banned. Um, because then if it gets banned, that means people are paying attention, and then more people will pay attention. Because that's what happens when you ban a book. You ban a book,
Yeah.
and then everyone wants to read it because it's like forbidden fruit, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I hope so. But what was the other part of the question?
Uh, what was it here? Oh, so how soon do you think it will be banned? I did have another question that attached to this one. What's your real read on the cultural political direction of the country now? And that seems like ages ago that I wrote this. That was a month ago, right? In terms of just collapsed or on the verge of collapsing, or things have happened so quickly since then. It almost seems, yeah, like I said, like another era a month ago.
I
But
know.
anyway, what's your read?
Well, we're totally fucked. We're totally fucked. And, we we as a country just underestimated so many things. We didn't listen to so many people who have been saying, look, there are these little dystopias all over the place. We need to put out these fires. We need to do this work. Everyone was just so like totally thinking that we've evolved and we've come so far. And a lot of people were saying, no, we haven't. I wasn't surprised when Trump got elected the first time. I was just so hoping so bad that he wouldn't be elected this time. Um, but in my house, we are just really happy that we have already started building a house in Mexico. That has been something we've been working on for a while. We're like really glad. The sad thing about it is I couldn't live there full time. I can't leave my son in the United States by himself. I couldn't bear to be away from California for too long of stretches.
Yeah.
Um, I have undocumented family members who are justifiably totally worried, and they're practically expecting to be deported. I mean, they talk about it with gallows humor. I know it terrifies the children in the family. Um, I have to remind the nieces who are still young, if their parents are deported. I had the talk with them. I had the talk with them recently saying, you do what your parents want you to do, but if you have a choice, you can always stay with us. Um, yeah, so things are really awful. I mean, I know y'all know this. I'm not preaching, I'm not saying anything that you don't know. We have to, there's a big protest on Saturday. We have to do everything. We have to do all the things. You got to download the 5 calls app and make call. I try to make calls in the morning when I have my coffee. It's not very relaxing, but that's what I try to do. I get up in the morning and I sit down with my coffee and I try to make 2 to 3 calls um every day if I can. So yeah, it's it's a legit constitutional crisis. People are like, I think everyone was debating whether it was. It feels to me like people are always kind of behind the 8 ball on this stuff. Like, maybe it's just because I'm a good speculative thinker, but it doesn't feel like that hard of a stretch to just think about stuff and then make a move, like try to anticipate bad shit and then move on it. But America just wants to, Americans just want to like buy more stuff and look at their phones, you know?
And yet your book offers some hope. It's a book of resistance. So that's nice. It's got a
Yeah.
nice spirit there. It
Yeah.
doesn't surrender. There's no quit in your book.
Well,
And
thanks.
yeah.
I'm
I
rereading, I'm listening to 1984 right now because I read it so many times, but I'm listening to the audiobook because I just kept feeling like I need to listen to 1980. I need to read 1984. I don't really have time to read a book I've read 20 times. I should probably read some new books, right? But I decided to listen to it in the car and I find it really comforting. Um, even though it's terrifying because it helps me like 1984 helps me like understand the mindset of these power mongers. It helps me kind of like work out um what's going on in kind of like a detail that I feel can help me unlock something. And maybe it won't, but like I feel like that. And we all need a little hope, right?
Yeah, we do a lot, actually. Okay, well, it's wonderful. How thick and fat is the actual novel? It's a
The
part of it, of
novel's
course.
not super It's not super long. It's about 260 pages.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, they always say, like, well, a lot of people have said, lots of people say lots of things about publishing, whether or not any of them are true or not. But this one probably is kind of true. Like, for your first novel, maybe don't try to write like this epic 500-page novel. If you're a nobody and nobody knows you, who's going to want to like take a chance on a 500-page book? Probably not very many publishers, right? So, 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 yeah, I also, I didn't want it to be super long. Also, writing novels is like really hard. Like, I'm not trying to write some like epic long novel. No, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Love writing, but sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm really more of an essayist. I'm a message first kind of person. Um, so novel writing, I have to work a little extra harder on novel writing, not to just be up on my like soapbox all the time, but also like I'm a punk writer, so I can do that a little more than other people probably. But maybe it's also why I haven't got as much stuff published because I'm not like I don't pussyfoot around. Let's just put it that way.
All right. Michael, did you want to ask if anybody wanted to ask Michelle any questions?
Yeah, let's thank you so much, Stephen and Michelle, for that really great and dynamic and fun conversation. Of course, serious conversation in many ways too. Important conversations. Thank you both. Yes, let's turn it over to our audience Q&A. So have a question ready to go. And as we're talking through this one, please drop in any questions into the Zoom chat about craft, process, content, the author herself, etc., as they occur to you. So we can ask Michelle these great questions y'all have. So our first question is, how do you feel about the differences between fiction and memoir? Does genre matter? Which is harder to write for you? It's a series, a couple of questions bundled in there.
Um, Definitely novel writing is harder. You have to keep track of so many different storylines and because I was so slow, like you're like, okay, I'm gonna revise this. And then you do like a big chunk of it and then you put it away for a minute because you like have a job and then you go back to it and then you feel like you have to start at the beginning all over again. And so I find novel writing, I find it really daunting actually. There's something about it that I love. I mean, I studied fiction writing in college. And then I went and I came out and I wrote two memoirs. One's unpublished and one is published. So it's kind of ironic. I wouldn't, in some ways, I feel like memoir writing is a little easier. Um, but I wouldn't say it's easy. I mean, you have to think really thematically with memoir writing. I mean, the way I wrote my memoir is a series of standalone stories. It's not like a full piece. It's like several stories, and then I combined shorter stories that were under the same theme to make up a full 5 to 8 page piece. And that was tricky, organizing them and making the transition smooth and making them fit together and showing the themes clearly. And then the other thing about now memoir writing that's hard is that, you know, if you're gonna when you're writing about other people and you're doing any kind of critique, which I do in the Spitboy rule, you're a jerk if you just critique everyone else and you don't critique yourself. Like you're an asshole. Don't do that. You're just like picking on everyone else and then you don't like you don't critique your own self. And so I had to sit back and think about what my role was and who I was and where I was annoying. Um which, wasn't exactly fun, but it wasn't super easy, but there was a part of it that I kind of enjoyed. I'm like, trying to see myself through the other bandmates' eyes. Like I was kind of needy, I was like a little immature and kind of needy. Just like riding on Adrian's coattails all the time, the singer, because she was like super outgoing. So I would just like kind of follow her around like a puppy dog because she would like talk to people and I'm standoffish. I got bullied a lot in high school, so I'm standoffish.
Thank you, Michelle, for that great response. Our next question is, what was the process of taking novel to chapbook?
Hmm. So after had been writing this book for a really long time, I had a friend, Jenny Forrester, who started doing developmental editing. And I was like, you know what? I couldn't see it anymore. Like I kept doing that thing where I would read a chunk and then put it away, and then I'd have to like start over again. I'm like, I'm never going to finish this revision at this pace. So I had my friend Jenny, I hired her to help me do that. And while she was working on that, I decided to submit for this chapbook. And so I was lucky that I already had someone as a reader. So I just put my head down for like 2 weeks and decided what I wanted, how I wanted to combine because this chapbook is kind of two sections, two main sections combined into one. And then I had to massage some things and change some things to make it work as a standalone piece. I really wanted it to stand alone. Um, and so I was lucky that I had a reader, because I had to turn it around really fast when I found out about the call for submissions. Yeah, when you find out quickly, you really do need someone to help you do some reading for you, because you can't pull it. It's hard to pull it off all alone, um, like that, and see it, well enough, fast enough. So that was the experience. I mean, it was super fun. And I will say, anytime you take your work and you envision it in a different way, and I've had this experience with illustrating a short story of mine, you can have some really cool epiphanies about the work. And you could see some things that you weren't able to see before. So that did happen. And now I'm like, oh yeah, the opening of this book needs to be revised again, for example.
That's fascinating. Thank you for your insight and for that insight into your process, Michelle.
Get
Our
help. That's the real answer.
yeah, I love that. Nice and concise. It's lean. um, our next question is wondering what you're working on now, currently.
Um, well, I really want to get the whole novel published, so I need to work on that. And in terms of writing, um, I think I am going to take on it seems so stupid. Marisol, this novel was so hard for me to write. It seems so dumb to write another one, but I got this idea, and you get an idea. That's the thing. An idea takes a hold of you, and you're like, okay, well, I gotta see if I can work this idea out. And it's the like, it's a novel about Tuolumne's first punk band. Bitch Fight was Tuolumne's first punk band. And it's kind of putting that in the setting of these two Chicanas, and the fact that they kind of learn as the band is growing and developing, that while they're being bullied by all these people in town, that like the town and the whole county has this very Mexican history that's been kind of hidden. Um, so that's one thing I'm working on. And then I also have sketched out a nonfiction book about just linguistic justice. So I want to write like a nonfiction work about linguistic justice and language, and how different people who speak different variations of English or different languages um, have been oppressed but have resisted through the language. And I want to give examples, and there'll be like American Indian examples, and then like, Black African American examples, Latino, and other groups. And it's going to take a lot of research. I've written a scholarly chapter on linguistic justice that's coming out in an anthology at the end of this year. That's called Reconceptualizing Feedback, a very academic title. It sounds like the most boring title. I'm like, wow. It's the kind of title that English teachers would be interested in, I guess. But every time I say it, I'm just like, wow, that title. Reconceptualizing feedback. Um, but so I have written, it was my first peer-reviewed scholarly article. And so I'll probably be doing a little bit more of that as well. I definitely think I might be more of a nonfiction writer. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that to this audience. I didn't say that. Wrong audience. Sorry. I can do it all. How about
There
that?
you go.
That's amazing. So true. And another question we had was how did your perspective on the themes of your book evolve while writing it? We kind of touched about that a little bit with like as the political climates continue to evolve or devolve, if that plays a role. But otherwise, yeah, just broadly, how did your perspective on the themes of your book evolve while writing it?
Well, the main themes of the novel Marisonlandia are really about grief and a grief over a loss of language and therefore a loss of culture. And it's largely a work that addresses, racism and microaggressions, um, particularly against Latinx people. In the novel, in the Fuller novel, there are a lot of people who are Salvadoran who are passing as Mexicanos in this seceded California because they don't want to get kicked out, right? And so there's a whole discussion, it kind of brings up that discussion about Salvadorans always being everyone just assumes they're Mexican, right? Or any other Latinx group. Um, but so those are some of the main themes in the novel. But what's so weird is I felt, because I spent so long writing, I felt like reality was catching up to the fictionalized world. But of course that's going to happen when you're speculating about what could happen, I guess. I mean, hope not, shouldn't have happened so fast, but it did. What was kind of terrifying from a writer's perspective was like, do I address every single one of these things that's happening? Or is it going to be weird that I don't include it? Or, my head just started to spin off almost that, in the longer novel, there's a section where children are separated from their parents. And, if that started happening during the pandemic, and I was trying to write the book and this was happening and it was so sad, but also it made me write it better, I think, which is so messed up, so messed up. I don't, yeah.
Thank you for that insight into the process of how your themes evolve, Michelle. It's fascinating and complicated, of course, too. So
Yeah.
thank you. The last question is now that Marisolandia is out in the world, what do you hope readers take away from your story?
Well, I want people to be thinking about, I would like people to know that there is those Jeffersonians and they do want California to secede from the United States. And they're scary. They are a scary group. If you don't know anything about the Jeffersonians, look them up. It's some creepy ass shit. Um, so I do want people to know about them. And then but I think more than anything, I'm writing particularly about Mexicanos, particularly about Chicanos, and particularly about Spanish. And that's not a metaphor for anything, um, but it can and could stand in for other groups and other lost languages and other ways that linguicism or discrimination against people with accents or people who speak another language or people who speak a variation of English is still a very acceptable form of discrimination. And I would really like my work in this novel and outside of this novel to educate us about the dangers of and the damage that we do to human souls when we take away their language and when we discriminate against them for the way they speak or assume that we don't have accents or that our the way we speak in this highfalutin English is somehow more superior, or that academic English is clearer than any other language out there. Like, this stuff is such crap, and it's just been socialized into us. And so I think those are the main things I hope people take away. And then I just want people to really appreciate all the different language variations and to see the ways in which they really are a part of our culture naturally in ways that you don't even recognize. And to be able to learn enough about these different language variations to recognize when the words that you're using or that you like or that are cool are words that come from indigenous cultures or that come from Black English or that come from Spanish or Spanglish, um, and to really take that and to see it for what it is, which is the America that we are, that we've always have been, and that we can continue to be. So maybe that.
Yeah, we're
And
totally
my Spanish teacher Hortensia is here. One of my Spanish teachers. Oh, thank you, Hortensia.
amazing. And I did miss a question in the chat from an audience member, but it is also a fitting final question too, which is, when did you realize that what you wrote was ready to be a complete work?
It has a really the the novel has a really beautiful ending. Most dystopian novels end really, really sad, and open-ended. And Marisolandia ends very open-ended in a lot of ways, but it's a very happy ending. And I really feel like I nailed the ending, and I think when I got there, I kind of knew I knew what was going to happen, but I didn't, you know how sometimes you know what's going to happen, but you know how to get there. You don't know how to get there. And when I finally got there, I felt like it was earned. I feel like it was earned. Um, you know, the book is probably not 100% ready. It's probably like 90% ready. So it's still not totally, but it's fully formed, more or less. It just needs some zhuzhing and maybe in the beginning. And when you zhuzh one thing, then you got to zhuzh the other. So that's super scary. Oh my gosh. But I'm gonna have to work up the courage to do it.
That's amazing. Well, nailed the ending of the book and nailed the ending of this event. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank
Um,
you.
and that wraps up our event for this
Jen.
evening. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us, and a huge thank you to Michelle.
And
Claps
to
for
my
Michelle.
students, thank you for hanging in there, y'all. That's a lot of me this week. Thank you for coming.
And thank you to Michelle. Thank you to our students. Um, and thank you to Stephen as well. And thank you, Michelle and Stephen, and everyone for being part of this wonderful event. So we encourage you all to pick up a copy of Marisolandia. It's available now. It'll be dropped in the Zoom chat one more time. So make sure to save that link, as the Zoom chat won't save after this closes. Thank you again. We hope to see you at our future events. Speaking of our future events, as you've seen, Michelle has such great insight on language and linguistics and culture. So Michelle will be putting together a panel on linguistic justice for our summer salon in June. So stay tuned for that, because that'll be amazing. Additionally, we will have a wonderful salon with a panel of readers led by WTAW author Olga Zilberborg on the art of translations on April 17th. And the registration link for that will also be in the chat, so please take note of that. Make sure to follow WTAW on Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky to keep up with everything going on, and signing up for our newsletter. Just signing up for our newsletter is one of the best and easiest ways y'all can help us out by staying informed about what we got coming. Great events like these. So thank you again, Michelle. Thank you again, Stephen. Thank you again to everyone who came out. Y'all rock.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
You're the best.
You're the best. Everybody buy Marisol. It's a good read. That's the bottom line. It's a great read.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Totally agree. Just amazing bottom line. So thank you all again. Wishing everyone a good night.
All right. Bye-bye.
Everyone, take care.